The series is set in the year 2149, when the Earth's ability to support life is reaching its end, as oxygen is depleting day by day due to overdevelopment. People are having difficulties breathing, so they are forced to wear specialized masks. Moreover, the world has become so polluted that the plants can no longer grow, and fruits are considered rare. To keep things strictly under control, a military-like law enforcement system has been imposed. They have adopted a two-child policy to combat the overpopulation issue. On the other hand, the scientists have also achieved a breakthrough. They have discovered a tear in the fabric of space-time, which leads them to Tera Nova, the prehistoric Earth of 85 million years ago. In other words, the scientists have found a time portal that can teleport them to the Cretaceous period, where the world is still green and dinosaurs are still active. At the start of the series, Jim Shannon, a cop by profession, enters his residence wearing a rebreather, which is an oxygen mask to support airflow. Jim lives with his wife, Elizabeth, a medical officer, and 3 children, Josh, Maddie, and Zoe. In this way, despite being a cop himself, he has violated the two-child policy. Soon, he takes out an orange from his bag, and the entire family is very surprised, since fruit and vegetables are in short supply, as the family is having a good time with the orange. What does that mean? Maddie suddenly enters the apartment and warns them that she saw the population control police in the lobby. This alarms the parents, and they quickly hide little Zoe in an air vent. Shortly after, the police come in and start rummaging through the place. It appears as if someone informed them about the 3rd child. At least if they find her, her final memory will be going nuts with that orange. They search everywhere, but fail to find the little girl. However, just as they are about to leave, a scared Zoe whimpers from the vent and gets discovered. Devastated, Jim begs the cops to release his daughter and even starts fighting them. However, he is easily outnumbered and taken into custody himself. For his offense, he's handed over an 8-year sentence. 2 years later, Elizabeth tips off a prison guard and finally manages to visit her husband. Jim is sick in his cell due to poor air quality and the lack of a rebreather. As the two reconcile, Elizabeth reveals that she has been given a position as a medical officer in the 10th pilgrimage, but she is not allowed to take Zoe. The 10th pilgrimage is the 10th group of human colonists who will be allowed to travel to Tera Nova, where they can start a new life. Before leaving, she tells Jim that he is their last hope and sneaks in a rebreather. After a while, Jim checks the rebreather and finds a hidden laser knife inside. Hot damn. In the next scene, Elizabeth, Maddie, and Josh check in, go through security, and head towards the time portal. On the other hand, Jim manages to get out of the prison with the help of the laser knife and arrives at the check-in area. He slides into a restricted room where he pays a large amount of money in exchange for a certain bag. Unfortunately, the officers notice him on camera breaching the restricted area. By this time, Elizabeth and the children have already walked in through the portal, but when Jim tries to follow them, an officer stops him. Since the time portal is irreversible, anyone who reaches Tera Nova cannot return. Jim knows about this, so he elbows the officer, steals his gun, and runs into the portal to follow his family. As soon as he enters the portal, he reaches the prehistoric Earth, which is completely different from the world they just left. Jim finally reunites with his family, but when a soldier notices the weapon in his hand, he is held at gunpoint. The soldier then checks the suspicious bag that Jim is carrying, and surprisingly, little Zoe comes out of it. Seeing the entire family together, the soldiers leave them be. What you're doing is all kinds of illegal, but god damn it, you made it to dinosaur world, so have a good day. Later, as the group proceeds towards Tera Nova, little Zoe comments on the sky. She notes that she had never seen the clouds so white and the trees so green. After entering Tera Nova for the first time, the travelers of the 10th pilgrimage are greeted by Commander Nathaniel Taylor, one of the first people to enter the travel portal. He gives a short introduction of the place and assures that everyone is going to have a better life from today onwards, so long as they don't get their asses ripped off by dinosaurs. Following this, he confronts Jim and Elizabeth and berates them for breaking the law. However, when the couple pleads for a fresh start, he lets them keep their 3 children. Jim wants to stay a cop in Tera Nova as well, but given his history, Taylor assigns him to the agricultural department. Next, the family settles into their new home. Maddie and Zoe fight for their new rooms, while their parents contemplate if they made the right decision by coming to Tera Nova. As everyone is busy moving their belongings, they notice that Zoe has wandered off. Outside, a curious Zoe approaches a brachiosaur, a dinosaur species, and feeds it with some fern. Surprisingly, the giant herbivore accepts it, which makes the little girl very happy. The following day, Josh and Maddie head towards an orientation meeting where they meet a fellow resident, Sky, and her friends, Tasha, Max, and Hunter. After the introductions, Josh decides to explore Tera Nova with Sky, while Maddie prefers to learn about their new home by attending the orientation meeting. Shortly after, Sky and her friends take Josh into the jungle. They arrive at a beautiful waterfall and jump into it. Near the waterfall, Sky shows Josh some rocks where golden-colored symbols are carved into them. Since Taylor has forbidden anyone to visit this area, Sky makes Josh promise to keep the stones a secret. Elsewhere, in the medical sector, Elizabeth attends to a patient surrounded by officers. She wonders why the patient needs security, and one of the officers informs her that he is a Sixers member. Sixers appear to be a group of rebels who have separated themselves from Tera Nova. Their main goal is to overthrow Commander Taylor and rob the main colony of all its resources. Suddenly, the patient jumps from his bed and threatens to kill Elizabeth with a laser knife. After using her as a hostage and forcing the officers to disarm, the man flees. Outside, Jim notices the man acting suspicious and follows him. Soon enough, the man attempts to attack Taylor, but Jim successfully stops him. Jim knows that there is more than a mere paradise in Tera Nova, so he demands Taylor explain about the man and why he was trying to kill him. However, with everyone around, the latter insists Jim get in his vehicle for a ride. After the two reach the same waterfall from before, Taylor starts explaining about the Sixers. He reveals that the Sixers came from the 6th pilgrimage with a secret supply of weapons. However, he doesn't know why the group wants to overthrow him. Taylor then commends Jim on his bravery and offers him to join Tera Nova's security forces. As the two continue chatting, they notice a group of Sixers heading toward their colony. Wasting no time, they begin pursuing the Sixers, but realize that they are actually fleeing from two Carnotaurus, a species of carnivorous dinosaurs. Taylor and his group somehow manage to repel the dinosaurs, but they still have to deal with their arch-enemies. Mira, the leader of the Sixers, comes out of her vehicle along with the others and starts talking. She reveals that she is there to negotiate the release of Carter, the same guy who tried to kill Taylor earlier. She then brings forth a large box of meteoric iron, an extremely rare element, and proposes to trade it for Carter. Realizing that the element is too valuable to give up on, Taylor agrees to the terms and releases Carter. Elsewhere, in the jungle, Josh, Sky, and the other friends start making booze from wild fruits. While they are enjoying themselves, they hear a loud roar. Sky explains it's an axoraptor, otherwise known as the Slasher. It is a dinosaur species with colorful feathers and a whip-like bladed tail, capable of cutting a man in half. But she assures Josh not to fear, as slashers mostly hunt at night. Mostly. Suddenly, they hear an even louder howl, so they decide to return to their vehicle. However, they are soon spotted by a couple of deadly slashers. The group somehow manages to take refuge in an armored vehicle, abandoned by the Sixers. But by this time, several slashers have surrounded them. In the attack, Tasha, Max, and Hunter get seriously injured. Back in the colony, Tera Nova security finds footage of the teenagers sneaking away. Fearing the worst, Jim, Elizabeth, and some soldiers head to the forest to rescue the children. Fortunately, they find the group in the nick of time and scare away the dinosaurs, using some advanced machinery. Following the close call, they head back to Tera Nova. Later, Sky visits Taylor in his residence and apologizes for initiating the trip. During their conversation, we realize that Sky is an orphan whose dad served under Taylor. Both of her parents were taken away by fever some years back. Imagine living with dinosaurs and getting killed by a fever. One day, a group of Tera Nova soldiers goes out into the woods to get some supplies. However, they are attacked and brutally killed by some unseen creatures. In the meantime, Josh, Maddie, and Zoe attend a survival seminar taught by Lieutenant Alicia Washington, the second in command to Taylor. Maddie is a smart kid, and she eagerly answers most of the questions asked by the lieutenant. Later that night, when Jim and Elizabeth start getting intimate, a creature starts screaming, so Jim goes outside to inspect. It is the same unseen animal that attacked the soldiers earlier, but Jim doesn't know this, so he simply scares it away. The following day, Taylor and Jim plan to search for the missing men, thinking it was the Sixers that attacked them. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is working in the medical sector when she bumps into Malcolm Wallace, one of her good friends from college. Malcolm tells her that he is a science officer there. That sounds made up, Malcolm. Just then, Jim walks in and interrupts their conversation. Elizabeth quickly introduces the two to each other, but when Malcolm learns that Jim is her husband, he is taken aback. In the next scene, Jim, along with Taylor and the crew, head out to the woods. While driving, Taylor asks Jim to investigate who is giving Mira information about Tera Nova. He believes that there's a mole within the colony. The group then arrives at the murder spot. When they see the dead soldiers, they notice that their faces have been disfigured. After a bit of checking around, they bring the dead bodies back to Tera Nova, and the medical team led by Elizabeth and Malcolm starts examining them. Elizabeth deduces that the soldiers were attacked from above. Just then, Jim, who is also in the lab, notices a claw-like piece on one of the corpses. With this clue, the medical officers decide to stay late to find out what creature could have killed the men. However, even after hours of research, they don't find any specimen that matches the mysterious claw. When Elizabeth returns home, Jim asks her about Malcolm. After he presses the issue, she finally tells him that she dated Malcolm for a while before breaking it off herself, probably after learning that there's no such thing as a science officer. Later that night, the couple attempts intimacy once again, but to their bad luck, they are again interrupted by the same creature. This thing is dangerous and a pervert. This time, Josh joins his father outside, and they notice several of the same creatures there. Josh tries scaring them away with a rock, but only ends up making them angry. They swarm over the father-son duo like a deadly rash, but before any serious injury is caused, Josh and Jim make it inside the house. The next day, Malcolm examines Jim's injuries from the creatures and realizes that they're the same ones that killed the men. After treating the injuries, a curious Jim asks Taylor about Malcolm and learns that he was the one who requested Elizabeth's arrival on Tera Nova. Outside, Sky and Josh are roaming around the market when they notice a large flock of the same birds. But before they could warn the others, the birds start attacking everyone. They leave the place after a few minutes, but by this time, several residents are seriously injured. Meanwhile, Malcolm recovers one of the dead birds and concludes that they're an unknown type of pterosaur, a species of flying reptile. In a meeting with Taylor and his crew, Malcolm deduces that the pterosaurs may be migrating. Taylor reveals that years ago, he and Lieutenant Alicia had discovered thousands of eggshells while digging the ground on which Tera Nova sits today. But since they were already hatched, the officers thought the creatures had long since moved on. Additionally, the shells made the ground so fertile that they decided to make the settlement in this location. Hearing this, Malcolm concludes that the pterosaurs are attacking them because Tera Nova sits upon their breeding grounds. Since the medical officers do not know much about the new species, Malcolm and Elizabeth tell Taylor that they will need a live male and female specimen of the pterosaurs to try to come up with a solution to defend against them. Next, Jim prepares to head out of the colony to get the specimens, while Malcolm details him about the species. However, instead of listening, Jim confronts him for still being in love with his wife, as he was the one who requested her presence in Tera Nova. This shocks Malcolm, and he defends himself by saying that he called Elizabeth, as she is the best medical officer he has ever known. A while later, Jim returns with the two said specimens. After studying the creatures, Malcolm and Elizabeth discover that they can produce an extremely powerful pheromone that could be used to lure all of the pterosaurs away from the colony and to another location where they can breed. As more pterosaurs continue to arrive at the settlement, Taylor orders the security team members to be stationed all around the colony. Mark Reynolds, a young soldier who evidently has a crush on Maddie, comes to her home for security. On the other hand, Josh also brings Sky to keep her safe from the creatures. Soon after, a giant swarm of pterosaurs invades the settlement and starts wreaking havoc. A few of them force their way into Jim's house via the air ducts. Mark, being a soldier, tries to scare them away but only ends up getting his ass knocked out. Despite this, Josh and the group fight valiantly and hold off the creatures long enough to lock themselves in another room. Elsewhere, at the medical lab, Elizabeth and Malcolm finally finish preparing the pheromones. Now all they have to do is lure the pterosaurs away. The commander Taylor decides to volunteer, and Jim also joins him. Soon, the two gear up and leave in a vehicle, which starts spraying the pheromone. Surprisingly, the plan works, and despite Taylor and Jim receiving some minor cuts, they manage to lure the entire swarm of pterosaurs away from Tera Nova. The episode ends as all the residents come out of their homes and resume their normal lives again.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe us for more videos.